We're just checking this out, this field right here. I actually finished it in the dark last night. Just the way things have been going lately, but this was our 2026 Buckwheat Smashdown. We did that all yesterday. Was that the 17th yesterday? I think. Right. Sounds right anyways. 19th. So we're gonna go to another field, some other fields, and look at it too, see how things are going. But had a lot to fit in lately. Yesterday, I'll tell you real briefly, we found out last week fire was ripping through Canada and Ontario. I'm sure you've all smelled the smoke, but we have a camp up there that we have gone to. I've gone to for about 12 years, stayed in different cabins. We've had a camper the last 3 years, and it all burned down to the ground. Whole campgrounds, the campgrounds by us, cabins, and a lot of the folks in the area lost a lot. Resorts, multiple resorts. They knew the fire was coming. No one really did anything about it. They reported it. So we lost a camper and a lot of memorabilia. In fact, Dylan had gotten me a hat for Cushing Lake Resort. It's probably 30, 35 years old, and that was something that meant a lot to us. It can never be replaced. But we had things like that. We had to explain to my son Jackson, who's 4, that was his favorite place to go out of anything. Wisconsin Dells, relatives, anything. He wants to go to Canada, and he thinks Canada's our camp, not the country. So when he heard the fires were burning in Canada, he said, you know, Dale, the resort owner, he said, can't Dale throw some water on it? He said, can we bring water up there and put it out? And so we had to explain to him we couldn't just leave it. So it's been pretty sad lately. Something that's my refuge. That's, a lot of people know I like to fish. I go fishing for relaxation. Not that I don't hunting, but there's so much else in work that takes with hunting. Fishing is, we just get out on that lake and we sometimes won't talk for a half hour. So anyways, that's kind of what we're going through right now. I don't mind sharing with you guys out there, but a lot of that work back with hunting has to do with this stuff. I think a lot of people don't realize how much it takes to take care of your land and do it right. And one of those things with doing it right is getting our buckwheat down. And that's a big annual thing I love to do. It's one of my favorite things to do. We'll get on some other plots and look at it, and we'll explain the process and how it looks and how it went this year. Well, here's a field we call Gold Rush, and the lower half of Gold Rush is planted in our rut zone. What's nice about that is we put it in with nutrients and herbicide, and that's some of the worst soil on our property down there. We'll go look at the rut zone and how it's doing. But this half of all our plots, then we'll do half brassica, the big boost brassica, and then down here the fall power. And that's that rotation I like doing. And then next year this will be rut zone. However, I wanted to show you guys the buckwheat. That is the meaning of this right here in this video. And I wanted to show you how thick this is down here. Very, very thick. Look at that right there, all laid down. Because this buckwheat is mature, that's the exact reason why this lays down so nicely. The bigger, taller, thicker it is, the more it just lays down flat. And I'll show you some over here when we walk through that I replanted and sprayed to get rid of weeds in a couple strips. Sprayer, I probably wasn't paying attention to it. It was running low. Had a couple strips through here that wasn't doing well. Weeds were coming in, and I hate weeds. They serve no purpose in a food plot because they don't give you attraction during the hunting season, and I could really care less what value a weed is during the summer if it's at the expense of my fall plots, because you can't build a herd or hunt a good herd during the summer or spring when any weed would have any value at all, and there's no value during the hunting season. So anyone that's telling you to have weeds in your plots or weeds are great, completely wrong if you're a deer hunter and if you care about building a herd, and especially a quality herd. So with this, look how thick this is right here. Used to, you know, I started this process over 25 years ago. No one else was doing it at this time, and I'm not saying someone doesn't have more experience at this point, but I've been doing this for over 25 years at a high level and instructing others to do it, following up with clients. You know, you work with 1,600 clients and all with food plots. So this is a tried and true method. We used to seed, we'd have medium to large size seeds. And then we have our small seeds like the brassica. So when we would seed into this when it was standing, you needed that for those big seeds, because then this covers it up like a ½ inch of soil, protects the seeds, protects that germination, and it keeps moisture against the ground, and then it germinates. But then we found it was inconsistent. Soybeans, you know, maybe they germinate if they have enough rain, maybe they don't, maybe they half germinate and then they die over the next week. Oats, kind of the same thing. Oats are not as germination proof as people think. It takes a lot longer to germinate them. They're a little bit larger seed through the spreader. And so then we would seed half of it, the bigger seeds, roll it, crush it like it is right here. And then on the other half, we'd wait for it to deteriorate, and then we'd plant the brassica, or we'd plant the brassica the same day we did this. What would end up happening is if we spread the brassica when it was too tall, waist high or taller, then you get an inconsistent spread. It doesn't go out as far. It hits the top of the buckwheat, comes down, so you get too much buckwheat in a short period of time. You get rows of stunted buckwheat, brassica, stunted brassica. So that didn't really work out too well. And then when we waited, you started having weeds come in, because when we would seed the same day, we couldn't spray 2,4-D or any broadleaf killer on it like 2,4-D that had a residual. So we started fighting weeds really bad out here and on our other farms, because pigweed, smartweed, some of these noxious, really bad weeds, lamb's quarter, would come in and start to take over the plot, and then that seed turns to like pigweed. I forget what the number is, but 300,000 seeds per acre or something. It's an incredible amount, or per 100 square feet. I don't know what it is. It's like dust. So huge amount that can cover a food plot in a year. We were really falling behind. And so not only did we have germination problems, broadcasting problems, we started shifting like our fall power blends. The old blends, you can't say the good old blends because we've improved them, but like the old WHS blend that used to sell out there, just peas and beans and oats, just wasn't a good blend. And so we've been able to improve on that. But one of the ways we improved, not only the quality of the forage, the volume and the attraction, but seed size. So we have smaller to medium sized seeds instead of medium to large. So we have the brassica that's all small, and then the other blends are small to medium. What that allows us to do is crush all this down first, like it is right now, and then we wait just 4 or 5 days, and we use Liberty Ultra, which is great at killing a lot of these noxious broadleafs, but no residual like 2,4-D. This is already yellow and turning light, and I just sprayed it less than 24 hours ago. So let alone in 3 days, this will be brown. When it's brown, these leaves that are 85% moisture have no moisture that holds it together. It's part of that leaf, that branch system. Even the stems are 50% moisture. So when all that dries up and dies within 3 or 4 days, then you can look right down to the soil and you can spread the seed. It'll go right on the soil. So now we have that planting window. Instead of 2,4-D, waiting 10 days to 2 weeks and then throwing the seed down, now we can plant. I mean, heck, if this was enough open soil right now, we could plant today. But we can wait 4 days, 5 days, we can wait 12 days. We have a really good broadleaf killer in there. The glyphosate we mix it with kills the grasses, and then we're left with a very consistent germination rate and catch. And it's just an evolution. We started doing that about 5 years ago. And before that, we were starting to force ourselves to not spread brassica into the standing buckwheat on this side, and then do it on this side with the bigger seeds, and then we'd alternate. And this is a lot more complete plan, and I just keep evolving the process. So I'm not saying we've perfected it yet. I'm just saying that we've had over 25 years to keep trying at it, and this is the best we have so far. Let's go right over here. You can see when the buckwheat's mature, lays down. When it's not mature, it stands up. And so it doesn't crush as easily. And then when you have pigweed mixed in, it doesn't crush. When you have weeds that are mixed in, the switchgrass or the buckwheat doesn't grow as strong, doesn't grow as tall, and it has a tendency to be supported by those weeds and not crush. So people, the best remedy to having a good field of buckwheat and fixing a bad field is to make sure you have mature buckwheat. You go back over here where it's mature and didn't have weeds, and just look at the difference. These are the 2 strips that I missed, and just missing it one time. Look at the damage with the buckwheat, the pigweed that's in here. So just missing it one spraying, This is what happens. This is what happens when you don't miss that spraying and you follow the plan and you get mature buckwheat. You get mature buckwheat that lays right down, lots of volume. The root system in here, I'll try to find a good root system here, just see if I can pull it out without it breaking. But this is all fine organic matter, folks, like this. This is all fine organic matter. And what that does is it lifts the soil. Look at the moisture down here at the base. Probably still holding moisture today, this stalk. But all that moisture just lays here in the sun and dries. It's all moisture still in this stalk right here, and it's dead basically on the stalk, but all fine organic matter that lifts the soil, helps you avoid compaction, puts a lot of nutrients into the soil, and does really, really well. You get over to here, and this is our rut zone. And you can see how well the rut zone is doing across this entire field. This field right here, very, very poor soil. But things like peas, beans, buckwheat, tillage radish, especially the tillage radish, the buckwheat, and the peas are really good with poor soil. When you look at just buckwheat and tillage radish, they grow just about anywhere. They've been proven rotational crops for building soil and smothering weeds in the form of buckwheat for centuries. The buckwheat has been around for over 400 years. So in this case, we actually have sugar beets in this mix, peas, beans. The beans are being protected by the buckwheat. You can see they get a little bit lower here. These dark green right here, we will get a pod. So look at these dark green soybean leaves, the buckwheat, and then down here we have the peas. So the peas are coming in. What happens to these peas, they're vining, so they'll vine up the buckwheat. The more they trellis up the buckwheat and the soybeans, the more sunlight they get and the more exposure. The deer eat the buckwheat first, protects the beans down below. This is really advanced food plotting. You know, as far as understanding what each seed does for the next, how it supports it, and what you're left with in the end. And I think a lot of times people look at 8 seeds, here's the benefit of each seed, so it's going to do 8 good things on the property. That's not the way it works. So that's 8 good things on the food plot. It's you need this one to nurse this one to nurse this one. It needs to be planted this way so there's enough sunlight getting in for this plant. It all has to work together. And our goal with this, and last year we had deer feeding on this through March. It was the most consistent food plot we had from August all the way to March. And it also held the most deer, provided the most volume of food, much more than corn, much more than just straight brassica, much more than straight fall power. It was more of a complete food plot. And so when we have this on half, and then we have half of this, 25% of the plot in brassica, 25% in fall power, then we have a giant amount of volume in this location. A lot of goodies going into the soil to improve the soil, buckwheat in between to limit weed growth, limits how many times you spray on the property. And we've really worked on how we can get a great crop of not only the buckwheat, but then the goodies that follow afterwards. And even the buckwheat, they don't really like it during the summertime because everything's fresh and young and green around here. But when you get young buckwheat on any property going into August and early September, the deer love those flower tops. They love hitting that, and they're doing that and leaving the stuff down below so that you can have full volume, because it's all about October, November, December. If it's eaten down to the dirt by October, November, it did nothing for you or the deer herd. And it works all together to make sure that not only do you have a great hunt, but a great deer herd, great crops, great soil. And we really like the balance of everything and how it relates. And I will mention those people up in Canada, our friends and neighbors, I've gotten to know. I've been up there a lot. That's my place to go. That's my refuge, my happy place. And it's my happy place for my family too. You know, we're all heartbroken about our loss, but so many up there lost so much more than us. Resort owners, people that lost their homes, people that lose their livelihood over. You know, Canadian insurance, from what we're starting to hear from some of the stories up there, not that great. And so, you know, you can have full coverage down here, you pay for it, it sounds like a lot of those resort owners are not going to get anywhere near back what they have into it. So some of them will just have to go belly up. So there's a lot of, you know, we had hundreds of camps, homes, campers, campgrounds, resorts around us that burned up. And so while we lost a little, so many lost so much more. So they could appreciate your prayers and good thoughts sent their way to our Canadian friends. Those Canadians are super nice people. We consider a lot of them our friends, and again, they're part of our happy spot. So appreciate your support and watching, and if you could send some prayers their way, appreciate that too.